All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our May Fireside Chat featuring Christine Todd Whitman. Please welcome Chris Hessler to kick us off.
Thanks, Peter, and thanks everyone for joining us. On behalf of the entire Virginia Forward team, I really want to thank Governor Whitman for making time to share her thoughts with us this evening. We're looking forward to a very good conversation and some real insights on how the Forward Party can move forward and make an impact. Before we get to that, I just a couple of words about what we're here for in general. This tonight should be about a lot more than just an interesting and stimulating conversation. This is really about citizens standing up and taking charge of democracy. Every day we are assaulted by another startling breakdown in democratic norms. But this situation didn't happen overnight. This has taken decades of malpractice by both parties who have been so much more focused on controlling government than on taking care of the problems that the American people need taking care of. And they've largely divided the country into fiefdoms where they go unchallenged entirely too often. Well, the Forward Party is coming to change that. In every human endeavor, competition is what brings results, innovation, and accountability. And the Forward Party is going to challenge the status quo everywhere we possibly can. And we're certainly focused on doing that in Virginia by using our voice, by bringing candidates, by challenging long-term, long-standing incumbents who are no longer responsive to the needs of the residents of Virginia. That's what we're here to do, and that's what this conversation is about. It's really about how we can make a difference. I'll say more about this later, but I want everyone who's listening to us tonight to think seriously about helping us by joining our efforts and volunteering to support what we're doing, volunteering to support our candidates, but also by contributing. Every political party runs on money, and we're going to be no different. We're up against some very well-endowed resources, and we need every penny we can get. And we will use every penny we get wisely and fully to support candidates and getting their message out there. So we'll say more about that in a little bit. Let me now bring on Sophia Nelson. Sophia is our Vice Chair for Communications and our spokeswoman for the Virginia Party. Her face is familiar to many of you. She's a CNN and former MSNBC legal and political analyst. Hi, Sophia. She's a columnist for both Forbes and the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. If you haven't read her there, you should. She had a great piece today in the AGC. She's worked on Capitol Hill as committee counsel. She's a best-selling author. I can go on and on. But one of the things Sophia and I have in common is that early in our career, we both had the great benefit of working for tonight's guest. And I certainly give Governor Whitman an awful lot of credit for my professional accomplishments, for her having faith in such a goofy young man to be able to put me in a position to learn and grow and to work under her tutelage about how government's really supposed to work. So I'm proud of that connection. I'm happy to share it with you, Sophia, and I'm looking forward to tonight's conversation. Oh, you are muted. I am not hearing you, Sophia. What's going on? It looks like you.
My apologies.
There we go.
Apologies. Hey, Chris, thank you for your words. And thank you for, I think, really setting the table for what I'm calling a courageous conversation this evening with our guest. Listen, before I go any further, though, let me say this. Happy Memorial Day weekend to everyone. This is a precious time in our country when we move into summer. And we also remember those who gave their last full measure of devotion, as Lincoln said. They gave the ultimate sacrifice. They served this country. They died for freedom. They protected freedom. And so if you are able this weekend and through the holiday on Monday, stop, place a flag, say thank you. Many of you, me included, have loved ones who served in the armed forces and some who gave their lives in service to their country. So let's not forget as we head into this holiday weekend that we are 1 year from our 250th birthday next July 4th, 2026. And so let me set the table for you. Governor Whitman needs no introduction, but for those of you who may not know who she is, which I can't imagine that you don't, let me say a little bit about her and my connection to her as Chris did. When I first heard the name Christine Todd Whitman, I was a senior in college, and she was running for the U.S. Senate against a guy named Bill Bradley. And Bill Bradley was a superstar. He was a superstar basketball player. He was being talked about for president of the United States in the 92 race to come. And Bill Bradley had a safe Senate seat. And here comes Christine Todd Whitman out of nowhere. She was a county freeholder in her native Somerset, New Jersey. And she almost beat the guy. Had she had a little more support from the RNC and President George H.W. Bush and those guys, I think she would have won that race. But what it did was it set the course for her to become the first female governor of New Jersey in 1993. She went on to serve 2 terms. Of course, as you know, she became the EPA administrator under President George W. Bush. She was there during 9/11 and had a very tough job as the EPA administrator dealing with all that happened after 9/11 and the cleanup and the damage to people's lives and their physical bodies and homes, etc. So Governor Whitman has been around politics for a long time. She is a Republican from the beginning. Her family Republican. She had deep Republican roots, was a very successful Republican politician. And yet here she is with us tonight as co-chair of the National Forward Party. And so what I'd like to do before I get to my first question, Governor, is I want to set the table for our guests. Chris kind of started us down that path, but let me just say a few words about where we are right now in this moment. As you know, the House of Representatives just passed a bill last evening where it was passed by 1 vote. It's going to add $3 trillion to the deficit. That's not me talking. That's the congressional budget. We had a ambush in the Oval Office yet again of a foreign leader. Harvard is being told that they can't let foreign students in. Their grants are being cut from the executive branch. We have a divide in this country like something I've never seen in my lifetime as a Gen Xer. My parents, baby boomers, marched in the civil rights era and told me stories about racial divisions and animus, but I've never really lived that. And to see it now is frankly alarming. We're watching civil liberties be trampled upon. The courts are involved. The branches of government are at war with one another seemingly. And so this is the state of our country. Tariffs starting a global war, the economy unstable, we've been downgraded by Moody's, our credit rating. All of these things are not good signs about the state of our union. I want to ask you, Governor Whitman, again, that's a grim picture I've painted. It is what it is. But 2 questions. First, tell us why you became a Fordist after being a Republican for so long and a very successful one. And then 2, what are your thoughts about the state of our union?
Well, you outlined a lot of the reasons why I belong to the Forward Party. As you said, I have long, deep roots in the Republican Party, but I tried for many years I saw a trend developing within the party that was troubling to me. I wrote a book in 2005 called It's My Party Too that outlined my concerns about the way the party was going, the trajectory, and what that was going to mean to the country as far as splitting it apart and how it wasn't healthy. And I tried over the years to get from within the party structure, to get the party to be more accommodating, to be more open to people with differing opinions, to understand that the way you solve problems is to reach consensus and work with the other side. And we were cutting that off at the knees just constantly. And it was obvious that there was just no way to change it from within. The parties have it exactly the way they like it. They're in control in their districts. over 500,000 elective offices across the country, and in any given year, 70% of those are uncontested. Voters only have one choice. That's wrong. And of those, 5 to 10% are never filled. That's wrong as well. And so I joined the Forward Party when Andrew Yang and David Jolly and Michael Wilner from Serve America. I was with the Renew America, and we'd all three, Andrew within the Democratic Party and the rest of us sort of within the Republican, decided it was hopeless. The only way we were going to make the change that needs to happen in this country is by joining together and creating a real third party, not just something that was going to go through one election cycle, but something that was going to build from the ground up a foundation that would allow people to express their own opinions. The Forward Party does not have the kind of traditional platform that we expect of parties that tells people you have to be pro-choice or anti-choice or pro-gun or anti-gun. We just say, look, we'll support Republicans, Democrats, Independents where we're not on the ballot. We are on the ballot now to one degree or another because states have all different categories in 13 states. We have 52 elected officials across the country, everything from a senator to a woman who beat a Moms for Liberty for the school board in North Carolina. And so we're really building from the ground up. And to be a forward candidate, to be accepted as a forward candidate, you sign a pledge that says, I'll agree to uphold the rule of law, respect the Constitution, work with anyone to solve problems, create a safe place to discuss the controversial issues, and work to ensure that everyone who has the legal right to vote gets to vote. And basing that on the principles of decency, diversity, and democracy, protecting our democracy. And because it should be up to the candidates and up to the parties in the various states to decide, well, what's important in my state? What are the most important issues to my constituents? What do I believe in? And get to vote that way. And that's what the Forward Party is all about. It's about, I think, going back to what our founding fathers wanted. They warned us about parties. They also warned us that if we were going to lose our government, it was going to come from within. Benjamin Franklin famously said, when asked what they'd given us, a republic if we can keep it, if you can keep it. And Abraham Lincoln said, if we were going to be destroyed, it would come from within. And that's what we're witnessing, and that's what Forward is fighting back against.
Yeah, I think everything you said is absolutely right, Governor. Let me ask you this. I've often heard members of our party, the Forward Party, say, we actually strive to be the second political party, not a third political party. What does that mean, the second political party?
We are the alternative. I mean, we are the place for disaffected Republicans, disaffected Democrats, those independents and unaffiliateds. We're giving them a home. And we believe, well, you can see it from the registrations across the country, the fastest growing party is the independents, the non-affiliated. The Republicans and Democrats both are losing, and we want to provide a home for them. And that will put us right up there as the second party.
Governor, let me switch gears for a moment too. I want to talk about women for a second. So fellas who are with us, just bear with me because you love the women in your life, so you care about these issues too. But, you know, Abigail Adams famously said to her husband, John, as he was leaving for the Continental Congress, remember the ladies.
Right.
And it seems to me that the ladies are under assault lately, you know, whether it's reproductive freedom and maternal health, whether it is the economy and this bill that was just passed the House, the cuts to Medicaid and things like that will disproportionately hurt women, single women, working moms, you know, moms who are poor and struggling, SNAP benefits.
Right.
This Diddy trial to me kind of really front and centered this issue of domestic abuse and violence and how we still don't value women. And how women don't value themselves. And so we're seeing a very interesting dynamic, Governor, where in many ways, when you look at DEI rollbacks, which again have disproportionately hurt women and women of color, some 37,000 jobs lost in the DEI sector since January. That's astounding. And again, disproportionately women of color. I can go on and on about the things, whether they're offering $5,000 to get pregnant and have a baby. That's something that they want you to do. The government wanting you to have a baby and pay you money. Talk to me a little bit about the Forward Party and women. And I know we have a women's committee that's robust, but what makes us different? And because our three leaders, you, Carrie, and Lindsay, all females at the top. I mean, Andrew's there too. And we love Andrew, but we've got women leading, which I think is great. Talk a little bit about why that's important in this time and what Forward's going to do to help encourage and inspire women to run for office.
Well, one of the things we're doing, and that's, I mentioned the moms for the gals who ran for the school board in North Carolina. And by encouraging people to run for local office, that's where the women stand up. That gives them a feeling of comfort that they don't always have if they really start out running for the Congress, running for the Senate. It's gotten so nasty too that a lot of them don't want to be part of it. But, I mean, I hate to say it, but we've got a convicted felon rapist as a president. He said some pretty awful things about what he could do to women. So it's not surprising that we're seeing this kind of thing go on. It's really discouraging. There's a book, I don't know if you've read it, called The Women on Platform 2. It's about, it's a historical fiction about the Irish women's fight for the right to get birth control. And it reminds you of how hard a fight it is and how we fought for these basic rights that we should have as women to control our own bodies. And now we're losing them. And so many of the younger people, because they've always lived with them, they don't really understand how dangerous this is. And this idea that women should just go home and have babies is ridiculous. I mean, we've seen over and over again, it's been proven in businesses that when publicly traded companies put more women on the board, they do better. We know from international relations, when you give a microloan to a woman, guess what? It gets spent in the community. When you give a microloan to a man, who knows where it goes? I mean, some of them do spend it in the community, but unfortunately, majority of it goes missing. But the women really invest in them. And that's why starting a party that's really focused on the state and local, you're building the farm team for the future. And it's easier to get women to feel comfortable about running for something like the library commission or the school board. But you know what? Those are really important positions. They make decisions that immediately impact our everyday lives. And so it's important to have women understand those are important. And we as a Forward Party are delighted. And we have a very active women's group, but we're constantly an outreach for women and minorities because you know what? No one group has all the right answers. And we get the better decision making when you have a variety of people that have different life experiences and different way of approaching problems. And that's why we need the diversity.
I agree. And Governor, before I open up for questions from others, one of the issues that really bothers me is the whole campaign finance issue, right? And the money in politics. You're kind of damned if you do and damned if you don't. You need money to run for office, whether it's running for mayor or running for Congress or whatever you're running for. But there's so much money in our politics now. And the two parties have such massive war chests and such infrastructures. People have asked me when they say, hey, Sophie, I'm interested in the Forward Party, but how in God's name do you guys compete with the money and with what the other two parties have? Your thoughts on that, Governor?
Money isn't everything. All politics is local when you have the right candidates. I mean, you mentioned my race against Bradley. He had $12 million. I had less than $1 million, and he beat me by maybe 3 percentage points. It isn't everything. Ross Perot can tell you that too, as a very wealthy, as Mike Bloomberg in their presidential efforts. So money isn't everything. Yes, it's important. Yes, you need to have some money. You need to have money of one degree or another. But if you've got the right message, if you are honest with the public, they can sense that. And that's what they're looking for. They're looking for someone who they can trust, someone in whom they can believe, and someone who is talking to them and listening to them, not at them, but to them, talking to them, with them. That's what's important, and women do that very well.
Yeah, Governor, you've been doing this a long time, and like I said, very successful in your career at everything you did. What happened? I mean, I know it's a broad question, but I've asked myself a lot as I've watched the discourse, the anger, the vitriol, the meanness, my goodness, the tribalism. How did we get here? And are we going to keep this republic? Are we going to be okay?
Well, that's going to be up to us. We're the ones that have to save it. And we're very close to losing it. You're right to be very worried about it. We got here, I believe, because we started to take our democracy for granted and we didn't vote in primaries. It was a 10% average turnout in primaries. Who are those people? Those are the most partisan. Those tend to be on the extremes. So what happens is you get candidates who are on the edges. It started on the just on the periphery, and then people didn't like those choices, so they didn't. It was 30%, 34% turnout in congressional elections, and maybe 53% for president. I mean, we let this happen to ourselves. And I blame the fact that we haven't been teaching civics for a long time, or teaching it well. Most people don't can't even tell you what the three branches of government are. And you have to wonder today whether there are three branches of government, because it doesn't seem that way. The Congress rolling over the way they are to this president, and the Supreme Court anyway, seeming to be a little bit ideological in a way that they shouldn't. But
Governor, you make a good point, and I think that we blame a lot on technology. Again, technology is great because we can do forums like this, but it seems like people are disconnected as human beings in a way that, again, in our lifetimes, we're kind of stunned at this. And how much do you blame the current state of our politics on the disinformation and the misinformation that is just 24/7 on top of all of us? How do you break through that to get back to some of the basic things you're talking about?
Well, that's where you have to have the people in office who are going to push back against things like that, or are going to establish the kind of dialogue that people want to hear. I mean, technology didn't do this to us because it's been happening since way before we had the internet as active as it is, and we had everyone was there being glued to their iPhones and being able to stay in their lane. And that's part of the problem. We are tribal, as you said, and we tend to go to sites that reinforce our preconceived positions. But we just got to keep challenging them. I went to see yesterday, saw Good Night and Good Luck about Edward R. Murrow, and the fight that he led really as a radio host against Eugene McCarthy and his anti-communism stuff. That was just, it seems, unfortunately, there's a thread here that we're beginning to see again. But it took one person who had a microphone. And so there are lots of microphones out there, and we can start the kind of dialogue that will appeal to people because it's not shouting. One of the things that we say with our candidates is show respect for the other person, create that safe space to have a conversation, be willing to work with anyone to solve today's problems. And when you start to have that as your basis, then you're going to start to attract people to that kind of a place. It's a safe place for them.
Thank you. Governor, we're going to take the first question. Peter, I'd like you to read the question on the EPA and the balance there.
Absolutely. So, Governor Whitman, you started your career in the Office of Economic Opportunity and later led the EPA during a Republican administration. How can we constructively balance the demands of environmental stewardship and productivity?
That's not hard at all. I mean, this idea that you can't have one and the other, you can't have both, that it's a zero-sum game, is just wrong. If you look at the numbers, from 1967, we were really enforcing our environmental regulations, which, oh, by the way, the environment is a Republican issue. I mean, the first person to set aside public land was Abraham Lincoln. Teddy Roosevelt vastly increased the national parks, and Richard Nixon is the one who created the EPA, signed the Clean Water Act, the Safe Drinking Water Act, the Clean Air Act. And when we were enforcing those things, 67 to 72, our economy was budgeting. I mean, it was growing by leaps and bounds. While we were growing as a population, car mileage was going up, energy demand was going up. It's not a zero-sum game. And as I say to people, you can't have a healthy, thriving economy if people don't have clean air to breathe, clean water to drink, and open space to get their mind back together, the ability to get away from all the pressures. So it's something that it makes no sense to me that people feel that you can't have that. And I ran into it with the Bush administration when we first came in. It was the time of rolling brownouts, and they were afraid of blackouts in California. And at the Energy Task Force that was set up, of which I was a part, I was told that it was all environmental regulations that had stopped the utilities in California from bringing on new power. So I said, well, okay, give me the list of the applications that are being held up, and I'll put them to the top of the list, and we'll make them go through it, but we'll get it through fast. Not a one. It was an economic decision by the utilities, not an environmental one. So much gets blamed on environmental regulation that it just isn't. And oh, by the way, Mother Nature could care less about geopolitical boundaries. So what happens when you get a release of in the air? It doesn't stay right there. It migrates, and people are all affected all over. So you have to have some national standards on these. And what's safe to drink in one state has to be safe to drink in the other, and the same with the air.
Okay, Peter, next question. And why don't you go ahead and ask her the question you're itching to ask?
Yes, we've had a couple of questions from the comments section about ranked choice voting. Specifically, is that something that we're pushing? What are the benefits we think we'd have from that? As well as, do you have any advice on how to advance ranked choice voting, particularly in a partisan state like Illinois?
Well, we definitely believe in opening the process at Forward, ranked choice voting, fusion voting, first across the line. There are a lot of different ways to do that. And so what we tell the states is what we show our state leads. These are the different ways that it's being done, and see what could possibly work in your state. For instance, here in New Jersey, our chances of getting ranked choice voting is slim to none, but there have been bills that have been put forward in the legislature on fusion voting. So that's one step. If we get that, that's the beginning of opening the process. You get enough people elected under that who are forwardist types, and oh, guess what? You're going to get legislation that changes. That's what we're about. I mean, the good thing to remember with what we're doing is that you don't have to have 100%. In a legislature, if you get 10 to 15 members, maybe, you have a fulcrum that can influence policy and really make a difference. And that's true all the way up and down the line. So it's a way, what we're doing is saying, you've got to look and see what makes sense in your state, but here are the different ways to open the process, and here's how it's been done successfully in different states. And then we more than happily put together our state leads who have accomplished where they've done it in a state. They're more than happy to talk to other state leads about how to get it done and what the problems were they faced. And that's what's really good about Forward, is our states are very willing to share, actually anxious when they've had successes, to share how they reached that level and what they were able to do.
Peter, why don't you ask her one last question, and then we'll get Chris back on and introduce the candidates so that people get a chance to meet them.
All right, we'll do a little easy one for the last one here. So the current administration is trying to eliminate many of the federal government's traditional responsibilities, and a primary alternative is Bernie's vision of a significantly larger government. Do you think big government, small government is an appropriate framing today? And if not, what's the alternative?
The alternative is necessary government. What is necessary to be done by the federal government, and what is necessary to be done by state government and local government? I mean, there are different responsibilities at all levels. There are some needs for federal government programs that states can't possibly fund, but need desperately. But it's not all in the federal government. It's not just big government or little government. It's the right government and at the right level.
All right. So what I'd like to do now, Governor, thank you for talking with me and for taking those questions. Is there anybody else, any one of our people here that would like to ask a question, Peter? Okay. All right.
I think we're good on that.
Okay, so at this point, what I like to do is, again, everybody thank Governor Whitman, do your little hearts and, hands up and all that other good stuff. Governor, you are amazing. I'm going to embarrass you here just a little bit. Like, I'm saying to myself, I want to be like her when I'm, in my seasoned years looking like this. You are still just on it. And I love the necessary government. That's something I'm going to write about. That's a good one. And thank you so much for being with us tonight. And I'm so glad that the internet cooperated with us.
Yes.
And it didn't kick you off through the storms in Jersey. And again, we're humbled and thank you so much. Chris, I'm going to throw it back to you.
Thanks a lot, Sophia, and let me add my thanks, Governor, for your time with us, and really, it's great that we have that kind of seasoned, wise national leadership that have both a vision of what democracy is supposed to be like and a personal commitment to use their time and resources to help us move in that direction. So I'm really grateful for this renewed association I get to have with Governor Whitman. I also want to thank every member of the Virginia Forward Party State Executive Committee. They have all reached into their pockets to make contributions to support this activity, myself included. And we want to ask you to join us in this effort. We really need help. And I'm about to bring on two candidates to introduce them who are going to be running for House of Delegates and here in Virginia. And they're both running against multi-decade incumbents, one Republican, one Democrat, who have just been without real serious competition for quite a long time. And each of them have a war chest in the $100,000 range, and we're just getting started here. So please go on to the website and consider contributing to support them. But let me bring them on. So Brandon Givens, hi Brandon, hi Kristen. Glad to have you both with us. Kristen, you're muted. There you go, perfect. I'm really thrilled. First of all, that you are both brave enough to put yourself into the arena and to do the hard work of running. This is how we get the message out that Christy Whitman was talking about. This is how we connect with people and draw them in and show them there is a better way. There is an alternative, and people are serious about it. And no one could be more serious than someone who puts their own name on a ballot and does all the work that goes along with that. So really, really grateful for your personal commitments and your bravery. So I'm going to ask each of you to say just a little bit about yourselves. Brandon, I'm going to start with you. You're running in Northern Virginia. You're in the Fairfax area. You're a teacher. You're a healthcare policy expert. What has brought you to this race, and what are you hoping to achieve?
Well, I was outside of the country for about 10 years, and I came back, and I don't know what you guys have done to this place, but I decided I need to help. All right, so traveling abroad, I got to see a lot of how things were done in other places. And there was this question about the right size of government. It should not only be necessary, but efficient. Like Nixon floated the minimum income because it might be more efficient than many, many government programs. And that's one of the reasons that I care about things so much, like healthcare, is we have, Medicaid, and each state has its own system. And then there's the plans people buy, and then there's the marketplace. It is beyond inefficient. Our government is penny wise and pound foolish. And somebody needs to be able to recognize that and deal with it. And the tribalism is destroying it. And so, we need people that will talk to people on the other side. The big, beautiful bill, the big, beautiful bill that's going to make a giant gaping hole in the budget that just passed. I think it passed by one vote.
That's right.
I think 3 Democrats have died since the election of age-related illnesses.
Yep.
And the one in my district here had been diagnosed with cancer about a year ago.
Yep.
And it's like they're Gollum holding on to the ring of power.
Yeah.
And it's just like, spend some time with your grandkids.
Yeah.
Give it on to the next generation. And that's what I'm about. And the change will only start at the local level.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm really glad that you're bringing this challenge. Let me add a data point on what you're talking about. Since I was born, and we won't discuss how many years ago that was, but it was a while. Since I was born, the cost of living, healthcare, housing, education, all up about 400%. But the average median family income up only 26%. We don't hear Republicans and Democrats talking about that. And to your point, Brandon, the legislation on the Hill looks right past that. It's going to make it a lot worse for a lot of people, and it's not making government any more efficient. Kristen, let me turn to you. First of all, it's good to see you. Everybody should know that Kristen is still working on getting her signatures, and we want you to come and join and help. She and I were out in front of a Walmart in Powhatan, Virginia, getting signatures last weekend, along with Eric Richards. And she's just a great campaigner. She's really compelling. People very much resonated with her. She was having these rich conversations with voters who are expressing the kind of concerns we're talking about tonight. And we're really excited that someone was coming to challenge the status quo. So Kristen is a veteran. She's a pilot. She's a farmer, and she's an engineer. And she's a forward party candidate now. So Kristen, what is it that brought you to this race?
Well, I have some passions of helping people reach their full potential. I don't care what your political persuasion is. I also, the Constitution, rule of law is huge for me in various jobs, including as a veteran. I took an oath to the Constitution 6 times, and I did not take that oath off when I retired. I'm big on strengthening democracy and voting rights. Rural America, in my district, is Amelia, Nottoway, and Powhatan, as well as a little slice of Northwest Chesterfield, is quite rural. And rural America has good reasons to be angry. Unfortunately, we've let that anger get hijacked. I'm committed to rebuilding a rural economy and infrastructure. Healthcare availability and affordability is huge for me as a cancer survivor. Housing availability and affordability. We've just strangled our housing in rural America. A sustainable, resilient food supply is important to me as a retired farmer. Education's a big deal for me. I was really blessed to come along when schools were opened up to women. And I went to 3 of them that had only recently been opened up to women. But I think that public education down at the lower level, I would like to emphasize career technical, even for the college-bound kids. Get everybody out with a skill that can work their way through college, for instance. Civics. I think that we've really fallen down on civics education and critical thinking. We've got to teach people how to think. And I've used my technical education for that, but there's got to be some innovation we can make there to get kids engaged in their own education and learn how to learn and learn how to think. And finally, returning power to the voters. Ranked choice voting is very appealing to me, especially in multi-candidate or at-large races. Campaign finance reform. We've had huge amount of money, including in my district. The incumbent has a lot of money that didn't come from inside the district. It's even worse for federal candidates. So I'm very interested in campaign finance changes. So please, if you can volunteer a little time to help me with signatures, if you're in my district, and even if you have 4 neighbors that you can talk to, I'll send you a form. And finally, I'll mention, if you want to get one way to get better acquainted with me is I do a farm and food newsletter that's free called Someone Grew That. And it's at someonegrew.that.farm. So sign up and join the fun there.
So let me ask each of you what you're hearing as you go out and speak with folks, whether it's at a firehouse or a public forum or in front of the Walmart. What is it that you're hearing that is encouraging you to keep going and to do the hard work of running a campaign? Brendan, why don't you go first?
Yeah. when I was going door to door, I mean, I met a lot of people that were quite supportive of an independent. I met people that weren't. Like as part of my elevator pitch, people wanted to know my position, and I just kind of cut it short and would often say, "Well, I'm like Bernie Sanders with a Southern accent, but I'm not coming after your guns." And then they're like, "Okay," and I would either sign, "Okay, fine, go on your way," or, "Well, you're not in my political party, so get off my lawn." But I did pretty well. I got the signatures, whatever. But a lot of people were supportive of independence, and they were frustrated. Now, whether that tribalism, that emotional tribalism, is going to kick in on election day, I don't know. So we need you to write some checks so we can get people emotionally excited about something a little different.
Well, mostly aware. I mean, what we found
Yeah.
when in the Arlington race we ran last year, that it was just about awareness. We got a lot of connectivity with where we were able to put boots on the ground and knock on doors and so on. But on election day, we heard a lot of people walking out saying, "Oh, I didn't realize who that was. I didn't realize she was on the ballot. I wish I'd known," and so on. Getting the word out, that takes money. It takes yard signs, it takes mailers, it takes texting. That all takes money. So, Kristen, what are you picking up as you start to talk to people?
Well, I'm hearing a lot of concern about what's going on in Washington and how it rolls down. And I think at the state level, we're going to have a big job of fixing the damage from some willy-nilly cuts. So there's concern. I'm hearing, unfortunately, people who've lost faith in our system, and but a lot of people are concerned about education for their kids or grandkids, and I've had some of the best conversations, or people telling me their concerns there. I've had unusual, like a lady that could have been anyone's grandmother tell me that she was worried about the electrical grid being attacked by hackers and terrorists, which is actually a possibility. She was not being paranoid.
Nope.
So, I do meet people who are very informed about something, have a passion about something, but I also, unfortunately, it's pretty clear that a lot of folks don't remember their civics from high school decades ago. So it's a mix, but a lot of people are saying, "Well, I don't think you have a chance, but I really hope you do."
Yeah,
and that's encouraging too.
Absolutely. I that resonates, and everything we did in the campaigns last year around the state, and the various meetings we've had around the state, that absolutely resonates. And I think one of the messages we hope to send to Virginia with both of your candidacies is exactly that. We're frustrated with both parties. We're challenging both parties with your campaigns, and we're challenging these really long time incumbents. Not to say they're bad people, not to say they were bad elected officials, but we need some fresh blood. We need folks to bring in new ideas and new perspectives and listen to the people, and not feel quite so comfortable all the time that they'll never have a challenge. So this is about the power of competition, and I'm really hopeful that your campaigns will enable a lot more folks in Virginia to begin to understand that there is another road. How do you feel about communicating that message? Is that something that you think will be front and center in your narratives, or are there other things that rise to the top?
Well, yeah, I mean, one of the things that I would say that did resonate with people is we've been trying the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. It's time to get some fresh blood in there. It's time to clean house. I mean, was it Marie Kondo? Is that the lady? We go Marie Kondo on that place. If that candidate doesn't spark joy, they need to be gone.
Yeah.
Clean house. Try something new.
Yeah. For me, I think my theme is, the engineer, the bridge builder, the problem solver. And I've always found that I could solve problems if I could get everybody in the room talking to each other. And so I'm big on consensus and getting people enthused about doing something different. And it's high workload approach, but ultimately you get people going because they believe in both what they understand what the problem is, and they want to solve it. They truly want to solve it, not just talk about solving it. I actually, in my writer role at some time in the past, I wrote a book on how to figure out what problem you're trying to solve and how you turn that into action. So I'm hoping that I can apply that.
I want to pick up on the theme of trying something new is the only sane thing we've got here. We've got a bunch of people listening to us on the live stream and on their various different platforms. The fact that they tuned in, the fact that they're paying attention, they're thirsty for something different. They're thirsty for an answer. But it's very, very common what you both expressed about hearing people say, well, you probably don't have a chance, but I'm really interested and I'm rooting for you. The thing is, there are a lot of people that want that change, and we have to collectively talk about the fact that we've got two choices. We can sit back and let the same thing keep repeating, the tribalism, the lack of competition, the lack of new ideas, or we can do something about that. And that is what Virginia Forward is trying to do. We're trying to do something about that. And so I said earlier in the conversation, this should be about more than an interesting conversation. It should be about how we change the country, starting in Virginia, controlling the things we can control. We can't control the stuff we're reading about every day, but we can control whether or not we make an effort and show up and try and do something. That's what both of you are doing. I'm so impressed. Last question for each of you. Which of the Forward Party values resonates most for you as a theme for why we need to do this? Governor Whitman talked about a number of them, which he was speaking. But which of those resonates the most for you?
The not being corrupt. I think if that's in order, the others follow.
Yeah.
Like the Constitution, Constitution is really big. Want to follow that, but if I'm not corrupt, that's a logical consequence. So I think not being corrupt is the key.
Kristen, how about you?
Well, I really liked the candidate pledge. I think it just really nailed it. Rule of law, the rules apply to everybody, including the politicians and the leaders, is another way maybe of saying not corrupt. And I don't separate those in my head. But those are just huge for me. At the same time, we have to also meet people out in a Walmart parking lot who are worried about their prescription cost, and or over at the co-op trying to figure out how to get their seed paid for.
Yeah. No, I mean, to me, this is about returning to American values and making it possible for people who want to carry that into elected office to have a chance. We're building the infrastructure for a different character of American politician to have a chance now. Someone who's not so comfortable selling out to all the pressures that both of the parties put on them and all the fundraising and everything else that goes along with it. That's what we're here to do, is to build that infrastructure to make it possible. We need brave people like you to stand up and really step into the arena. And our job as a party is to help get people to follow that lead. So Let me just turn back and, well, first of all, thank you both. Thank you for running. Thank you for being great Americans and great Virginians. I am looking forward to working the campaign trail very hard with both of you and in the coming months. And I look forward to all the great conversations we're going to be able to have with people in Virginia. So folks, help us out. We really, really need your help. Peter's going to put up the donation badge here, so you can just go onto the website. You can use that. We really, really need you to just make whatever kind of a commitment you can make. $25 a month would be great. We're coming up on the 250th anniversary of the country, as Sophia said. It's important for us to remember what that means to each one of us. $25 a month, that's a lunch out or something. It's not that big of a deal for the health of our country. So we really, really like you to join us and just help us help these great candidates get this message out, that there's so many of us who care about our country, are frustrated with the direction it's gone in, and are determined to do something about it. Please donate. Please ask anybody on the executive committee if you want to talk about what you can do to help this organization grow. We need volunteers. We need help getting signatures for Kristen to make sure she's on the ballot. We're going to need people knocking on doors and putting up signs. We need help. We can't do this alone, but with your help, we can make a really, really big difference in Virginia. And if Virginia starts to make a big difference, the rest of the country can follow. So please help us out. Just look in the mirror and ask yourself, what kind of country do you want to live in? And if this isn't the country, what can you do about it? This is something you can do about it. Thanks again. Thanks to Sophia for a great conversation. Thanks to all of my colleagues on the executive committee who are doing really good, hard work. And thanks mostly to Governor Whitman for giving her time to us tonight to talk about this very important topic. Peter, you can take us home.
All right. Thanks so much, Chris. Thanks to everyone who joined us this evening. Make sure you check out our website for other upcoming events, and we'll have this online for you to share with folks who weren't able to join later. Thanks so much, and have a great night.